The scent of jasmine, usually a promise of summer, had never tasted so much like ash as it did that Tuesday morning. It was just after breakfast, a quiet hour, when the email landed an impersonal chain from our shared business account, the subject line a mundane partnership update. The attached document, a revised agreement I'd never seen, laid out a new structure that effectively erased my decade of contributions, shrinking my equity and authority to a symbolic fraction. My name appeared, yes, but only as a placeholder for a future that now explicitly excluded my full participation. In that instant, the brief, beautiful life I'd meticulously built didn't simply end. It shattered into shards of ice. It felt less like a natural conclusion, and more like my wings were deliberately clipped, not by fate, but by a calculated act designed to keep me grounded and small. They perceived me as ephemeral, a fleeting bloom, pretty for a season but ultimately inconsequential. The shock was a cold, constricting force, a sudden winter descending on everything vibrant, transforming my world into a desolate landscape. My perceived vulnerability wasn't just exposed. It had been ruthlessly exploited, an open invitation for them to dismantle my future. Yet, as the chill deepened, a different kind of stillness began to form, a quiet hardening beneath the surface, like a chrysalis in the frost. The initial shock, a cold, breathless plunge, eventually gave way not to shattered fragments, but to an unnerving quiet. I found myself in a strange, still space, watching the dust settle around the wreckage of what I'd believed was genuinely mine. For days, the air had been thick with the hum of betrayal, the metallic tang of disbelief, but now there was only a stark clarity. The raw, gut-wrenching pain of being so thoroughly undermined had to pass. It wasn't about the sting of the individual slights, nor the humiliation of being so carelessly dismissed, but the cold, calculated dismantling of a future I'd painstakingly built. My initial impulse was a furious blaze, yet a deeper, colder current quickly took hold. Revenge felt chaotic, noisy. I preferred the precision of resolution, a meticulous realignment. The specifics of their orchestrated deception remained a sharp outline, ready for me to fill in the grim details. But the question was no longer times if times I would act, but times how times I would begin. The silence became my forge. The serenity that now anchors my days feels earned, a stark counterpoint to a time when my world was vibrant chaos, a garden I had meticulously nurtured. I pictured a brief, beautiful life, full of shared dreams and collective growth, sowing seeds of trust and ambition into fertile ground. I imagined a partnership, an alliance of minds focused on building something enduring. But that naive idealism, that tender growth, made me a perfect target. They saw not a partner, but an opportunity. Not a garden to cultivate, but a patch of ripe earth ready for pillage. Their eyes, I now realize, held a blend of envy for the life I was building, and a predatory hunger for what they perceived as easily seized assets. They moved with a chilling, almost casual precision, leveraging every shared secret, every disclosed vulnerability, every promise I ever took at face value. One by one, my boundaries were eroded, my resources redirected, my dreams quietly relabeled as theirs. The very essence of what I had worked for, the intellectual property, the financial security, even my professional reputation, became fodder for their casual taking. The vibrant ecosystem I carefully cultivated was overrun, its waters muddied, its soil left barren. They underestimated the depth of my roots, mistaking quiet contemplation for weakness. They mistook my trust for an invitation to plunder. What they didn't realize was that even a desecrated garden holds the potential for rebirth, and the stakes for its restoration had just escalated exponentially. The initial shock dissolved, replaced by a crystalline clarity. My path forward wasn't fueled by fleeting anger, but by a quiet, methodical resolve to reconstruct my life on an unshakable foundation. I moved from the chaos of betrayal to the deliberate structure of a precise, multi-pronged strategy. This involved deep dives into every legal option available, meticulous financial audits of shared assets, and strategic information, assembling the receipts that would validate my narrative. The early stages were eye-opening. The extensive research into legal avenues alone, let alone the initial consultation fees and retainer costs, revealed a formidable financial commitment. This was no quick fix, but a marathon, requiring not just willpower, but also practical resources and meticulous planning. Yet, seeing the blueprint emerge from the noise, detailing each step, from asset tracing to document preparation, brought a profound sense of control. Have you ever felt minimized, only to find your true strength in quiet strategy? The silence around me allowed for focus, allowing me to transform my indignation into a tangible plan of action. The next phase was about execution, turning theory into irrefutable fact. While they believed their narrative had cemented, my work began in the quiet hum of my home office, a deliberate retreat into methodical discovery. My world had become a meticulous array of screens, each pixel a potential truth teller. Encrypted email chains, time-stamped from their supposedly innocuous communications weeks before the incident, revealed a telling pattern of coordinated delays and strategic omissions. Screenshots documented recurring transfers, specific round sums shifting from their operational accounts to an offshore LLC registered just weeks prior, the dates precisely coinciding with critical project milestones. Corporate filings, pulled from state and federal registers, painted a stark picture of deliberate misrepresentation, showing discrepancies in ownership and asset allocation that screamed intent. My private investigators' reports, delivered discreetly via a secure portal, detailed their carefully curated public facades versus the hushed associations and undisclosed meetings. Then, one late Tuesday night, buried deep within a forgotten 2018 partnership agreement, I found it, a tiny addendum disguised as standard boilerplate, a right of first refusal clause designed to look harmless. When cross-referenced with a single, carelessly forwarded text message, "We'll box her out anyway," their facade didn't just crack, it shattered. This wasn't misfortune, it was meticulous architecture. Every piece, carefully extracted and placed, became a thread in the unseen fabric of my counter-narrative, building a reality stronger than the one they tried to dismantle. The foundations were now laid, firm and undeniable, beneath the very ground they thought they controlled. My first move wasn't loud, but a silent digital file. They underestimated my resolve, assuming quietness meant compliance. I filed a petition to amend the trust's Articles of Incorporation, timed for the busy quarter end. The court's timestamp confirmed Tuesday, 9:02 a.m. Notification wouldn't reach them for days. This calculated delay was intentional. Their perceived power rested on my passivity. My filing, however, was a quiet, undeniable shift, the first turn of a key. Soon, its full weight would be felt. The quiet I had cultivated was suddenly shattered by a predictable gale, a storm of their own making. Within days, the first legal notice landed, a frivolous cease and desist that was more threat than substance, followed by a coordinated smear campaign blossoming across local forums and social media. Their aggression, though desperate, wasn't unexpected. I had long anticipated their playbook. They tried to paint me as erratic, ungrateful, and even financially reckless, hoping to chip away at my credibility. Each attack, however, felt less like a blow and more like a gust against a reinforced structure. My responses were deliberately calm, measured. For every legal maneuver, my attorneys filed a concise, data-backed countermotion, citing specific clauses and documented facts. The cost of defending against their baseless claims was a minor friction, a calculated expense built into my budget, but their frantic noise only underscored their lack of control. While they broadcasted their outrage, I continued to operate in the background, letting my actions speak louder than their shouts. The wind howled, but I had engineered myself to be a building, not a tent. They believed they were attacking my weakness, yet each desperate effort proved only the robustness of my new form. The air in the chamber was thick with unspoken tension, a quiet counterpoint to the clamor of the past few months. Across the polished table, their faces, once so self-assured, were now studies in dawning comprehension, their forced smiles replaced by a stark, unsettling stillness. I felt no triumph, only a steady calm as I laid out the binders containing the notarized filings, the registered intellectual property, and the certified communication logs. Each document was a clear receipt, a quiet, irrefutable truth against their years of dismissive whispers and calculated exclusions. The legal team merely watched, as silent witnesses to the unraveling of what they'd presumed to be a done deal. Their deflated posturing was a stark contrast to my own quiet command, as I presented the final, uncontestable injunction securing the full rights to the concept they had rebranded as their own. The venture, once a fragile idea they'd called a brief, beautiful life meant to be fleeting, was now mine, irrevocably. The opportunity they tried to steal, to diminish, was fully restored. It wasn't about revenge. It was about the meticulous retrieval of what was always rightfully mine, and the quiet establishment of boundaries that would echo for years. My plan for the recovered asset was already in motion. I would build it, nurture it, ensure its longevity far beyond any brief existence they'd imagined. This wasn't just about proving a point. It was about realizing the vision, expanding its reach, and making it soar on its own terms. Perhaps you too have a brief life you're ready to make beautiful on your own terms. I had spent years being overlooked, dismissed as inconsequential. But now, with the papers signed and my future clear, I knew precisely who I was. You thought you saw a butterfly. You just didn't realize I was preparing for a migration.